episode of Makilala. Today our topic is Filipinos on Broadway. You know, they say that Filipinos are leading the Asian talent in theater. Me and my co-hosts, Jen Furrer and Rachelle Ocampo, would like to know if this is true or this is just something that we Filipinos made up. Joining us are two performers who are well known in the New York theater circuit, Jose Llana and Jaygee Macapugay. Jose and Jaygee are currently playing Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos in Here Lies Love, which is this very popular disco-themed, danceable production created by David Byrne. Welcome to Makilala, Jose and Jaygee.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Jose has appeared in numerous Broadway productions, among them Rent, Flower Drum Song, The King and I, and several other musicals. Jaygee has played Imelda Marcos in an earlier production called Imelda, a New Musical. She will talk to us later about typecasting. Also joining us is our guest co-host, Ledy Almadin of the Philippine American Chamber of Commerce. Ledy is in the financial industry and she is an avid Broadway watcher. Welcome to Makilala, Ledy.
Hello. Thank you for having me here today.
Okay, great. So, ladies and Jose, this is what we know so far. Here is a breakdown of casting on Broadway. It is 80% Caucasian, 13% African American, 4% Latino Hispanic, and 2% Asian American.
That's it?
Yeah, we are fighting with other Asians in that very small sliver, 2%. So Caucasians are obviously overrepresented according to this study by the Asian American Performers Action Coalition. My question is, are we really leading the Asian demographics on Broadway, and are we at all surprised? Jose?
Well, you know, I don't know the exact statistics of what piece of the pie Filipino Americans are in that Asian American. I don't know exactly what it is because you know what we do is all perception. I've played Chinese, I've played Puerto Rican, I've played Thai. You know, so in the world of acting, if I can come in and convince you that I can play a character, that's what you're going to cast me in.
That's right.
I think the key to the conversation actually is, are people writing our stories? Are people writing stories to put on stages where you can use actors who look like us to tell those stories? And I think that's what's important. I think a lot of Asian American playwrights and directors are coming into their own now and they're putting our stories on stage.
That's right. What do you think, Jaygee?
Well, I also think that because there is an underrepresentation of our stories on the world stage, that Filipino Americans, Asian Americans are also starting to write their own works too as well, because if we're not being represented, then at some point we have to do it ourselves.
But what do you see anecdotally? Do you see a lot of Filipinos performing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you
that's right.
can't swing a dead cat around a Miss Saigon cast without hitting a couple Filipinos. You know,
That's
that's what
right,
you
yeah.
say.
And in Here Lies Love is, that's our own story.
Yes.
That is very unique, right?
We're very proud to say that with our cast of 17, right? Currently, 15 of the 17 are either full
Really?
or half Filipino,
Oh, that's nice.
which is kind of great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
It actually feels like family whenever we come to the show every single day, because it just feels like it's a big Filipino party
That's
every
right.
time we go to work.
But when you say writing our own story, why does it always have to be the story of the Marcoses? Jaygee, you've appeared as Imelda twice already. Are you worried about being typecast?
I'm happy to have a job. But I am connected to this woman somehow, having done the show twice.
I know. Is there a past life somewhere?
Well, I think it's a testament to say how interesting this woman is, Imelda Marcos is, that not only Imelda, a new musical in 2009, and Here Lies Love this year, but I've seen other plays, read other books. Her as a character, she's just so interesting that writers just can't help but
Right.
create
I mean, the
a
best
story
stories
about her.
come from outrageous stories. And there's nothing more
that is so
outrageous
true.
than the Marcos regime in the Philippines. And that's why David was inspired to look at this time in our Filipino history and go, what happened? How can we tell that story, and how can we tell it in an exciting way?
Yeah.
Jose and Jaygee, how did you guys start being on Broadway? Was it like the next morning you apply, you audition, and then you got a call back, and yes, Broadway, that's it? Is that like an easy?
Definitely that easy.
Yeah.
Definitely
Oh
not.
yes, I wish I could say
Right,
that. For me, I actually have to say I have done off-Broadway shows, and so I actually haven't been on Broadway yet. So when I first moved to New York 10 years ago, I knew of Jose Llana, who has established himself as a successful Broadway actor. And so I was looking at him and his career and tracking him to see how well he's done. But, you know, for me, it's just been about auditioning. And a lot of the work that I've also done has been regional theater. So you start out, you audition, and you start building a portfolio of work for regional work, and then whatever like guerrilla theater you can do in New York City, and then hopefully eventually get to your Broadway show.
That's right.
I had a really lucky break my freshman year in college. I came to school here in New York to go to a conservatory, and my freshman year in college, they were auditioning for the Broadway revival of The King and I. And I snuck into a private audition. It was for the union members, and I just had a lot of gumption and a lot of courage, and I prepared for that audition. And all through the summer after my freshman year, they called me back, and I got my first show. I was 19.
Wow.
What role was that?
I was a young lover in The King and I in '96, the Lou Diamond Phillips, Donna Murphy revival
Oh, okay.
in '96, and
Is that Lunta?
I was Lunta.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I mean, I always tell friends, like people who ask about what we do in our profession. So much of, in my opinion, what success is when you match opportunity, which is the luck and the preparation, with a little bit of luck. You need luck.
Timing.
Yeah,
The
that's
timing
right.
has to be
Yeah.
there. Like, who knew that when I was 18 years old, they were auditioning, looking for a teenager to play a young Burmese baritone, you know, and I was exactly the right age and exactly the right
Yeah.
look at the right time.
That's
so
right.
The hard thing was sustaining that. Like, my mom and dad even said, "You had your lucky break. You're going to go back to school now, right?" You know, and to keep going and keep auditioning.
But
It's
you
about the next
had
job.
education in theater, right?
I
Or in
did.
music, yeah. So that more or
started
less
doing-
prepared you for a life in theater, right?
As much as it can, you know. I mean, no one can fully prepare you for what we do is crazy. Actor's life is kind of crazy. You're constantly.
Tell us about it.
Well,
What
You
is
were
one
yeah.
crazy story that you could share in public? Because it's public access TV. Let us know.
I'll give you
What is
one. I'll
one
give you
crazy
one.
actor story?
How I started. My
Okay.
degree is in advertising,
Oh.
and I sort of fell into performance because I knew I wanted to sing, I wanted to act and dance, but I didn't know how to do it. And I was living in Chicago, working at an ad agency, and I heard about the auditions for Disney World at the Hubbard Street Dance Company. I took a day off of work, went to the auditions, saw everybody getting ready. I was wearing like an express sweater and like leggings and like penny loafers, and it was just all about timing. I auditioned and they said, we need an immediate replacement at the Animal Kingdom for a show called Tarzan Rocks.
Yes.
And you moved to Orlando, Florida in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And
You just left your job.
I quit my job and I
Packed your
moved to
bags.
Florida, and that's what
Wow.
started it off. And
Yeah.
it's amazing that you can get these opportunities, but
That's
you have to
right.
catch
You
it
gotta
and go
take 'em.
for it.
Yeah.
So, Ledy, you have a question for them?
Yeah, I mean, considering like Cristina said, there's only 4% of Asian.
2%.
2%.
You are so generous.
But is it safe to say we have much more opportunities now than before?
Oh, very
I mean,
much so.
Thankfully.
I mean, not
There
to
are
mention
more.
Miss Saigon.
Yeah.
Well, no, you know, when I moved to New York almost 18 years ago, no, 20 years ago, even then, things were beginning to change. Like, then your only opportunities were to be cast in an Asian part in an Asian show. Now, playwrights are writing stories that have a wide range of ethnicity in the story that they're telling. Like, because the casts are becoming more diverse, you can have an Asian American character, or you can have an Asian American actor playing a part that you didn't necessarily write as Asian American, but this actor walked in and blew your socks off. Now that part is Asian American. You know, like in
Right.
Spelling Bee, I made my character Chip Tolentino. Like, he wasn't written as a Filipino character, but I gave him a Filipino last name. And so,
Okay. Can you do that?
well, no, not all playwrights and composers
okay,
are that
right,
Open.
are that open. But when they cast me in the show and we started rehearsing, they said, you know what,
Just
we
makes
wrote this character named Trip Barrington. It doesn't really fit you.
Yeah.
What character do you think your character's
Trip
name should be?
Barrington.
Yeah, right.
I have a question. Does it really get in the way of the audience appreciation of a production if you cast, for example, a Filipina Cinderella? Everybody knows a Cinderella to be blonde and white.
Well, what
Does it
about
get
how
in
about
the-
how about
Makeup and-
Brandy in Cinderella? Didn't they do that in like?
That's what I wanted to know. Have there been studies about that? That it
Well,
gets in
it's-
the way of
Well,
appreciating
number one, you
Cinderella?
have to remember too, it's a business. You know, so Brandy was cast because she was a big pop
She's
star.
Brandy.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Leia
Yeah,
Salonga
Leia
just
Salonga
did the
made
Cinderella
this.
tour around Asia. You know, so
did she?
she's a big star, and it's.
It
For
has no
example.
effect at all.
What do you mean?
The way a person looks at the program, at the
Of
story.
course it does.
It
Yeah.
does affect.
Of course it does.
I think
Of course it does. I mean, I think a producer is not going to put a non-celebrity person of color in a non-traditional way as the lead of their show because it may confuse the audience from their
Yeah, that's what I
perspective.
thought, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, Alice Ripley's understudy, standby in Next to Normal on Broadway was Pearl Sun. She's Chinese, right? And she actually did the tour with her. And I thought it was just bold casting. And I thought it was so fantastic that you have a director and a casting director and producers who are willing, on some night when Alice is not in the show, she won a Tony for that part,
That's right.
to have this Asian American woman be the lead of the show with a white family on stage. And trust that the audience will go there with you and go, okay, we know she's the understudy, but she's amazing.
And we just did, I think, a production of Oliver, which is an all-Asian Oliver, and of that cast, 10 are Filipino,
Great.
Filipino-American.
I just did Oliver at Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey this past
That's
winter.
right, yeah.
And I played Bill Sykes in that production. I was the only, well, there were two people of color on stage.
On stage, okay.
Yeah, and
You
so it's
mentioned
happening.
Tony Awards. I was looking at your website, and in New York Times, I think in 2013, said you should have been nominated for Tony for
Here Lies Love.
for Here Lies Love. So
That was nice.
so that, look,
That was nice.
That was
That's all I'm going to say.
I mean,
No, it's
how
not.
do you feel? I mean, how, like when you get like, because as a mother who has kids who are like artists, and you want to like, you kind of like want to balance them. You want to make a living, or you want to be in art. But in this one, it's kind of like a validation of what
Oh, it was
you
a huge
love to
validation.
do.
I
So
mean,
when you heard that, so what was
It was
your
fantastic. I mean, it was also from Ben Brantley, who is the head critic for the New York Times. You know, it actually just also put a spotlight on the current way that the Tonys are established in New York theater. Like, only Broadway shows are eligible for Tony Awards. No off-Broadway shows are, which automatically eliminates a lot of really good theater
Yeah,
in New York.
that's right.
So,
But you,
yeah, go
mentioned business. I can't help not think about business because I'm in business. But we also mentioned there are playwrights, good playwrights, who are Asian or Filipinos. But do you think there's room for Filipino or Asian producers? I think if we have such, a good number of producers, that will give more opportunities for materials pertaining for Asians or Filipinos.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be wonderful
Yeah.
if there were more. Jet Tolentino is a Filipino
Yeah, that's right.
producer of Here
Yeah.
Lies Love, and he also was a producer for Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, which won a Tony Award this year for Best Musical. So
Right.
it's great to have him, but he's the only one.
he's also an investor and a producer for Raisin in the Sun, who won that one for Best
For Best
Revival of the Play.
Revival.
Do you
Yeah.
think there's room for them?
There's always room.
Okay.
There's always room.
So it's not like it's being exclusive for
No, business is
certain.
business.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you make
You know?
money out of it.
But
I
how
think
do
it'll
we
go.
try to support that group of people who are upcoming producers, upcoming playwrights? Like, is there a platform that we can share for people to go to? Because I know that you said that you teach at a class.
Well, I teach at a theater camp.
Theater
yeah,
camp,
Making it on
okay.
Broadway. Yeah, there are numerous camps that promote young kids to come to New York and learn what we do as theater artists.
But is it really geared towards theater artists, but not as like playwrights, producers? Because that's a whole new.
That's a whole different world.
Yeah, it's a
That's
big
line of
world.
work.
I
Like,
think I think there was there's a contest every year. The Palace, I think they put it together. They're encouraging. I forgot what it is. They're encouraging playwrights to write Filipino themed
Oh,
or stories, so that that's the only way for Filipinos to be in mainstream if you have actual stories about us, and we have plenty of stories.
Well, it makes
to
me
talk
think about how there's so many Filipino performers. So many Filipinos love to sing, but the ones that are writers and producers, it's generating that kind of excitement around having more producers out there, and
Right.
recognize that it is you can make money off of it. You can, by bringing that, then you'll bring the Filipino
Right.
more actors out there. If we can get more producers, more writers to
Right.
get their stories out in the forefront.
Has it ever happened to either of you that you audition for a role and your competition is Filipino?
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Really?
all the
How does
time.
that feel like? You know, like,
Feels great.
Yeah.
oh, really?
No, I
But
love it.
you
I mean, I always
you
say that
are
if I don't
trying
get it,
to
I hope he
compete for the
does.
same role.
Yeah, I mean, and hopefully you get. I mean, obviously when you're younger, and when on a bad day, you know, you let the jealousies
Yeah.
overtake you. But I think in this industry, competition is great. But if I don't get a job, I hope my Filipino friend does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Healthy
Yeah.
competition is great. It
It's
brings the
fantastic.
best out of you as an
Yeah.
artist.
So this issue of overrepresentation of Caucasian actors, is this a manifestation of racial discrimination, or is it because there are just so many white actors on
It's
Broadway?
also an underrepresentation more that of the Asian Americans.
So there are just way too many Caucasian actors?
I believe in America.
That's a broad statement. I mean,
So
Or am I
it's gonna be-
oversimplifying?
first of all, art is subjective. You know, art is not democratic. You don't say, okay, how many white people do we have in the room? How many black people? How many Asian people? We're going to tell that many white stories, that many black stories, and that many Asian stories. Like that's not art. You know, you have a playwright who wants to write his story, and that story may have a black character, and that story may have a white character. And so, I mean, when we do the statistics, it's about encouraging casting directors to push that playwright to say, okay, you wrote a story about a family who meets a stranger. Maybe that stranger is Asian American. Maybe one of the kids is black. You know, so it's about pushing the boundaries of making the playwright see the world as the contemporary mixed, diverse world that it is,
That's right.
and put it on stage.
And also allowing, I think APAC put that study out to show casting directors so that, hey, why don't we invite more, a broader representation of people
That's
for
right,
these
yeah.
appointments.
Right. And just
Is that
because you have an
helping?
Asian playwright doesn't mean he's going to write an Asian story.
Is there some kind of a consciousness to hire more people of color?
Is there more?
Is there more consciousness on stage among
depends on who
casting
you talk to.
directors to hire
Yeah.
more people of color?
It depends on who you talk to. It all depends on, you know, what world you're trying. Again, each show is so different. You know, you can't. The casting for one show can't be the same guidelines you cast for another show.
Jose, you teach theater, right?
Theater
so,
camps, yeah.
So both of you, how do you prepare for a part? I mean, Here Lies Love, you're playing Ferdinand Marcos.
Ferdinand Marcos.
And your family are kind of like
Yeah.
Marcos,
My
right?
mom and
so how
dad
did,
were
how
both
did that
pretty heavy
play out?
anti-Marcos activists in the Philippines. I was born in martial law. My sister and I were both born in martial law, and we left the Philippines in '79. And my mom and dad raised my ate and me to have a full awareness of why we left, and the importance of staying in touch with all of our family and friends who were still there. And the 7 years up until the People Power Revolution, we had a whole group of Filipino friends come to each. We would go to take turns at different houses, watching the news and gathering and having fundraisers to send money back. So when I told them I was involved in
What was
a
their
musical
reaction?
about
Yeah.
the Marcoses, and they were like, "So who are you playing?" And I said, "I'm playing Marcos."
And the reaction was?
Why not Aquino? But I told them we're telling the story. We're telling the whole story. We have to tell it from the beginning to the end, and it ends with the People Power Revolution. And if you told me 20 years ago when I started working that I would be working on a show that celebrated the power of the People Power Revolution, I would have told you you were crazy. But here we are.
Would they have been happier if you played Ninoy Aquino?
You know
Seriously?
what? They would have been. They would have been happy regardless of whatever part I was playing.
That's
I think
nice.
it's more important for them that we're telling the story. Because I think so many young Filipinos, Americans, don't know the story.
That's true.
Thank
You
you
know?
for bringing that up. No,
Yeah.
we do not.
Because I think a lot of
I
people
speak
left
for a
from
lot of
martial
us.
law. They left the Philippines behind, and they didn't want to look back.
Have they seen it? Have they seen the play?
My parents?
Yeah.
Oh, numerous times.
Oh, really? Okay.
And they were. It was hard. It was hard.
About like tears.
Yeah, it was hard because it reminded them of a really hard, difficult time in their history, in the Filipino history, that made them leave their country to go somewhere else. And so it's a mixed bag of emotions for Filipinos to come. But the biggest thing that we've gotten is young Filipino Americans who are like, oh, my parents never told us about martial law. They
That's
didn't tell us about
amazing,
the
yeah.
Marcos. They didn't tell us
Really?
about Aquino. And I'm like, how can you not know
Yeah.
the history of your country?
But you know what? And it happens.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I learned mostly about martial law from having done these two musicals. And
Right.
one of the best things about Here Lies Love for our cast members is to be able to have a dialogue with their own parents about their experiences. Because for whatever
interesting, yeah,
reason,
uh-huh.
parents sometimes don't talk to their children about the negative or what happened. I don't know if it's the whole idea of Filipinos laugh to keep from crying, or they don't want to talk about
Selective
the negative.
memory.
Yeah.
It's I don't know.
It's not a pleasant thing to recall and talk to.
I don't think it's not.
family
Like for
about,
me,
someone.
I did not ask my parents of their story of coming here or how they even met. I don't even know why. The only reason why I even asked my parents about my mom, her story, is because I wanted to see if I was eligible for dual citizenship. And I'm like, Mommy, were you a Philippine citizen when I was born? She's like, I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure I was American by the time you were born. I was like, how do you not know? Can you check your papers? How did you get here? What is your story? Who brought you here? Because she was the first one.
So important.
in her family.
It's so important to find out because it actually made me appreciate so much more on a totally different level of our story. Of
So did
That's true,
your
though.
mother come here because of martial law?
No, my mom, it's a very personal story,
okay, right, we went.
but offline I'll let you know. But yeah, I found out I was eligible for dual
Yeah.
citizenship, and it was because I talked to my mom, and it was all about that. And I really hope to encourage other people to talk to their parents.
Yeah.
I actually wrote a book about my story, so my kids,
Yeah.
I told them, read it, because it's the only way for you to learn what the entire family went through for you guys to be here.
Did they read it?
They actually did. I paid them $20, but
Your children. But that's remarkable because art many times will start a conversation,
Yes.
and this is Here Lies Love is a story about a Filipino,
That's
stories
right.
that makes people communicate.
The hard thing is
Jaygee-
the wound is still fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not like we're talking about something that happened 100 years ago.
That's right.
There are people who come to our show. You can clearly see that they're old enough that they were at those rallies. They were at those riots. They were at Mendiola Bridge.
Yeah.
Almost getting gunned down. And so it's hard to ask someone who lived through that to come in and watch us sing and dance about it.
JJ, I'm curious, how did you get into the role, get into the persona of Imelda Marcos?
Oh.
How did you study her personality?
I read a lot of books. Steel
start with
Butterflies.
shoes, I'm sorry.
Well, actually, Here Lies Love doesn't really talk about the shoes at all.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
wear 2 pairs of shoes the entire
All
time.
throughout,
yeah,
the
the
entire
entire
time.
show. But
Yeah.
no, absolutely, that's a valid question because I did 2 different shows about Imelda Marcos. One that was all about the shoes, and then ours, which was more about her story and like the songs and how a song can help bring about the story of a
Oh
woman's
no,
life.
unfortunately, we are cutting short our very interesting discussion to bring you a musical number from Broadway, from Aida. Here to sing Easiest Life is young actress, model, singer, scholar, Gail Banawis.
This is the moment when the gods expect me to beg for help, but I won't even try. I want nothing in the world but myself to protect me, and I won't lie down, roll over and die. All I have to do is forget how much I love him. All I have to do is put my longing to one side. Tell myself that love's an ever-changing situation. Passion would have cooled and all the magic would have died. It's easy. It's easy. All I have to do is pretend I never knew him on those very rare occasions when he steals into my heart. Better to have lost him when the ties were barely binding. Better the contempt of the familiar cannot start. It's easy. It's easy until I think about him as he was when I last touched him, and how he could have don't let up, they keep on coming. All I ever wanted, and I'm throwing it away. It's easy, it's easy as a life. But then I see the faces of one defeated people, a father and a nation who won't let a coward run. Is this how the gods reward the faithful through the ages, forcing us to prove that they're the hardest things we've done? They're easy, so easy. And though I think about him till the earth draws it around me, and though I choose to leave him for another kind of love, this is no denial, no betrayal, but redemption. Redeemed into my own eyes and in the pantheon of love. It's easy, it's easy as a life. It's easy as life. It's easy as life.
Thank you, Gail. That was Gail Banawis singing Easy as Life from Aida, music and lyrics by Tim Rice and Elton John. Jose and Jaygee, thanks so much for joining us
Thanks for having us.
and giving us some insights on how the Filipino actor is doing on Broadway. If they want to get tickets to Here Lies Love, they just go to herelieslove.com, right?
You bet.
You got it.
Perfect. Ledy, thanks for joining us at the table and
you.
asking some really business provocative questions. Don't forget,
you.
next month, Makilala is celebrating its first anniversary, and we will be having a lot of dancing and singing, and somebody's going to rap. That's all I can say for now. And you wouldn't want to miss that show. So, till next month on Makilala TV, on behalf of my co-hosts, Jen and Rachelle, keep watching.